What if I told you that in 2004, Arsenal went invincible, Porto won the Champions League, Napoli got relegated to Serie C, Greece won the Euros, Tunisia won the AFCON, Werder Bremen won the Bundesliga, and Valencia won La Liga. 2004 was the weirdest year of football ever, but let me explain exactly how it all went down. The turn of the century saw Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United battle Arsene Wenger's Gunners for supremacy over English football. United got the first blow, winning the 2000 and 2001 Premier League title. Arsenal got their get back by clinching the title on the 8th of May 2002, following a convincing win against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Throughout this time, United and Arsenal were in a league of their own, a two-horse race. But that would all change as the summer of 2003 saw Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich purchase the West London club Chelsea for £140 million. This move completely changed the landscape of the Premier League, as immediately Roman Abramovich went on a £100 million spending spree, landing players like Claude Makelele, Hernan Crespo, Wayne Bridge, Glenn Johnson, Joe Cole and Damien Duff. This gesture by Chelsea essentially shattered the former monopoly. Nevertheless, Arsenal and both United's confidence didn't waver, as they both brought in their own signings to help strengthen their squads. Arsenal started off the season on fire, winning 4 out of their first 5 games, placing them top of the league. But their first real challenge would come on their 6th match. Arsenal were to play United at Old Trafford. United sat in second, 1 point behind Arsenal coming into the game, so a win here for either side would have been a major boost for their title push. As any United versus Arsenal game during that era, it was more than a game. It was a battle that saw the referee hand out 8 yellow cards. Both teams tried but failed to break the deadlock, and time was running out until the 80th minute. In the 80th minute, Ruud van Nistelrooy would quite literally jump on Patrick Vieira in an attempt to win a long ball. Vieira was knocked down to the ground, and his rage consumed him, causing him to lash out and try to kick Van Nistelrooy. Van Nistelrooy would jump back, exaggerating Vieira's attack, and as you'd expect, the referee gave Vieira his second yellow and he was sent off. But see, Vieira and a few of the other Arsenal players weren't having it, and so a brawl ensued. But the chaos didn't end there, as in the 90th minute, Diego Forlan would be fouled, giving United a chance to steal the 3 points at the death. And as fate would have it, Ruud van Nistelrooy would step up to take the penalty and miss. Once the final whistle was blown, Arsenal players erupted, but this goalless result came at a cost, as Chelsea leapfrogged both United and Arsenal to the top spot. Despite this mishap, Arsenal continued their fine form, beating both Liverpool and Newcastle back to back. But their second test would come on the 9th match week, and this time it would be against the new boys, Chelsea. Arsenal opened up the scoring immediately with a terrific free kick from Edu, but a four-line screamer just 3 minutes later saw the game tied until the 75th minute. Chelsea midfielder Makelele fouled Dennis Bergkamp near the halfway line. Arsenal would take the free kick almost instantly, catching the Chelsea backline off guard. But luckily for Chelsea, their keeper Carlo Cudicini was quickly off his line to collect the ball, preventing the Arsenal goal. He dropped the ball, gifting Henry and Arsenal the win. These 3 points were invaluable as they placed Arsenal back in the top spot. Arsenal would soon stumble back down to second due to back-to-back draws against Leicester and Fulham, and so Arsenal sat in second place at Christmas. And things would remain this way, despite Arsenal failing to drop any points until mid-January, in which a 2-0 win over Aston Villa saw Arsenal finally reclaim the top spot. Arsenal held firmly to the top spot and went on a streak, winning 10 games from 13 since the start of the new year, thanks to some incredible performances from star players like Henry and Robert Pires. Chelsea and United were simply unable to keep up with the Gunners, and so the gap between them widened. And come April 25th, Arsenal had the opportunity of a lifetime. Arsenal could win the league against Tottenham at White Hart Lane, and all Arsenal needed was a point coming into the game. It was quite literally written in the stars. Coming into the North London derby, Arsenal had 84 points and sat comfortably at the top of the table, whereas Tottenham was struggling to secure a top half finish, following no wins in their last 6 games. But as you know, in a North London derby, anything can happen. Once the match begun, it would only take Arsenal 3 minutes to take the lead, thanks to a swift counter-attack from a Tottenham corner. Arsenal doubled their lead in the 35th minute, thanks to a beautiful passage of play, and it was looking all smooth sailing for Arsenal, up until the 62nd minute, in which Jamie Redknapp fired a rocket into the bottom left. This goal seemed to awaken the sleeping Spurs, and in the final minutes of the game, they were awarded a corner. The ball was crossed in and came off the bar, but in the process, Lehmann and Robbie Keane would have a tussle, in which the ref would award Spurs a penalty, claiming Keane was fouled. Robbie Keane converted the penalty for Tottenham, making it 2-2, but it was all a little too late. Arsenal were officially champions once again, for the second time in 2 years. But they still did have 3 more games left of the season, to not lose, to accomplish the impossible and become invincible. The first was a 0-0 draw to Birmingham. Boring. Then a 1-0 win against Fulham. And the final day 2-1 win against Leicester meant that the Gunners had pulled off the greatest achievement in English football in history. Teams have come close, but have never been able to replicate what the 2004 Arsenal Invincibles accomplished. The UEFA Champions League is more than just a tournament. It's the pinnacle of European club football. Each year, the best teams from across the continent battle for supremacy, with the stakes as high as the glory itself. To win the Champions League is to etch your name in the annals of footballing history. And in 2004, the world's greatest competition saw a very unlikely winner. See, despite Porto being a part of the Portugal Big Three, in Europe they are deemed as a smaller club compared to the likes of neighbouring Spanish clubs like Real Madrid or Barcelona. So how did this not so significant team earn the title of Europe's best? See, it was all thanks to this one man, Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho had built this core group of players that were essentially his backbone. He had Vitor Baia in between the sticks, with Ricardo Carvalho at the back, and in front of him was a midfield three of Costinha, Deco and Mendes. See, just the season prior, Mourinho had led Porto to a treble, and they never slowed down, carrying on their success into the 03-04 Champions League, where they finished second in their group, just 3 points behind Real Madrid. But the knockout stages would see Porto face their toughest opponents yet. In fact, it got started right away, as in the round of 16, they faced Manchester United. The first leg was played in Porto, and it didn't take long for United to take the lead, as Quinton Fortune pounced on a save from a Scholes free kick. But just 15 minutes later, Porto equalised thanks to a volley from Benny McCarthy. The game would remain in a stalemate until the 78th minute, where a long ball was played into the United box, and among both central defenders, Benny McCarthy rose to head in the winner. Porto had just beaten United, but see, the thing was, that was only at home. Surely they wouldn't be able to come to the Theatre of Dreams and defeat the Red Devils in front of their fans. But that's exactly what they did. See, similarly to the first leg, United took the early lead once again. In fact, it was Scholes that grabbed the first goal, and technically got the second, but the rightful goal was taken away due to a terrible offside call. Nevertheless, the game was tied on aggregate, and United seemed to be going through on away goals. But in the 90th minute, with time running out, Porto had gotten one more chance, a free kick from 30 yards out. Porto's Benny McCarthy stepped up to take the free kick, but unfortunately, his attempt was saved. But out of the blue came Costinha to tap in the winner. Porto triumphed as Mourinho hit his classic sideline celebration. Moving on to the quarterfinals, Porto now had to face Lyon. The first leg was at Porto. Porto hammered Lyon, beating them 2-0, and things would only go from bad to worse for Lyon, as in the second leg, Porto managed to score within 6 minutes. Nevertheless, Lyon did fight back, and ended up drawing the game 2-2, but it wasn't enough, and Porto was heading to the semi-final. Now, Porto's semi-final opponent was Deportivo, and you're probably wondering, Deportivo, as in the team that currently sits 17th in the Spanish second division? Yes, I'm talking about them. The first leg was once again played in Portugal, only this time the match ended with a boring 0-0 draw. The second leg seemed to be heading in the same direction until the 60th minute, in which Deco was brought down in the box and Porto were awarded a penalty. There lay Porto's striker that had been out due to injury since December stepped up and scored the only goal in the game, taking Porto to the promised land, the Champions League final. The final was played in Germany, and on the 26th of May 2004, the game had begun, and both teams had their fair share of early chances, but the first goal came in the form of a volley by Carlos Alberto. After that, the game became flat, and neither team were unable to score until the 71st minute. It was Porto that would double their lead, thanks to Deco sending the keeper and the defenders the wrong way. Monaco were defeated, but Porto didn't take their foot off the pedal and scored the third, putting the final nail on the coffin for Monaco. Porto erupted in jubilation, as they had done what many dream of but few achieve. They won the Champions League. Greece were placed in Group A, which also contained Portugal, Spain and Russia. Amongst their group, Greece were by far viewed as the worst team and were predicted to finish nothing but 4th. Hopes were so low in fact that even Greek players such as Karagounis said our main goal for the tournament was to just enjoy taking part. This phrase just emphasizes how clueless they are for what's to come. Their first game was the opening match against the home nation Portugal, and it wouldn't take long for Greece to score, as in the 7th minute, Karagounis fired a rocket into the bottom left corner, giving Greece the early lead. The game would go back and forth, with both sides having chances to score. But in the 51st minute, Greek right back Seitaridis was fouled in the box by the one and only Cristiano Ronaldo. The 19-year-old Cristiano gave Greece their second goal, thus widening Portugal's deficit. In injury time, Ronaldo would actually get one back, but it was all too little too late, and Greece took all 3 points, making history as their first ever win at a major tournament. Greece's next game was against Spain, and it ended with a 1-1 draw. This draw meant that going into the last game of the group stage, Greece sat at the top of Group A, and were on the brink of making Greek history by qualifying to the knockout stages for the first time in history. All that stood before them was Russia. See, Russia had lost their first 2 games and were unable to score in both, so surely Greece would be able to do the same. Russia didn't lay down, but instead beat Greece 2-1 thanks to 2 early goals, stunning the Greeks. On the other side of Group A, Portugal ended up beating Spain on the final game, and so Portugal would go through in first place. But the second spot was between Spain and Greece. See, both teams had won a game, lost a game and drew a game. And to go one step further, both teams had the same goal difference. So the question is, who would go through to the knockout rounds? It would be Greece, thanks to them scoring more goals than Spain. And so Greece were to play winners of Group B, France in the quarterfinals. This was no doubt Greece's biggest challenge yet, as the French team was completely stacked. The game was a boring one-sided affair, with Greece defending bravely, waiting for the opportunity to strike, and it would come in the 65th minute as Karistias headed in his second goal of the tournament. Now all Greece had to do was just to hold on and they'd be through to the semi-finals, and that's just what they did, as France failed to penetrate the Greek defences. Now Greece's next game was against another underdog, Group D winners, Czech Republic. The game would go back and forth, with both sides unable to score in 90 minutes. But in extra time, Greece headed in another winner. This time, it was centre-back Delas that got Greece the goal to get them to the final. But who'd be their opponent in the final? Portugal. Greece would have a rematch of their first game of the Euros in the final, and Portugal were out to avenge themselves. Following their opening day defeat, they suffered in front of their home crowd. Nevertheless, Europe was set to make history, as a win for both Portugal and Greece would have been their first ever. The first half of the match was lackluster, with both teams failing to capitalise. But not the same can be said for the second half, as in the 56th minute, Greece had won a corner. Greek midfielder Bassinas crossed the ball into the box, and similar to all their other knockout goals, the ball was headed in, this time by Karistias. Greece has stunned the home nation for a second time, and from this moment onwards, the Greek parked the bus, inviting the shocked Portuguese pressure. Wave after wave of attack came, but the Portuguese failed to penetrate the Greek defences. The referee blew the whistle, and Greece's dream became a reality, as they were now European champions. During the late 80s and early 90s, Napoli were living the golden dream. They went on an incredible run and managed to win their first 2 Scudettos, firstly in 86-87 and secondly in 89-90. The Azzurri also managed to win their only European trophy to date, beating Juventus in the quarterfinals, then Bayern in the semi-finals, before beating Stuttgart 5-4 in the final. During this 5-year period, Napoli's lowest league finish was 3rd, and this period of success was spearheaded by their 5'5" Argentinian wizard, Diego Armando Maradona. Maradona and Napoli became a beacon of hope for all of southern Italy, as they rose up against the traditional big 3, Juve, AC and Inter, up in the north. But this chapter of prosperity sadly came to an end following Maradona being banned from football for 15 months, and as a result, Napoli finished 8th. Napoli never managed to recover, as they lost one star player after another, and in 1998, the Azzurri were relegated to Serie B. They were able to achieve promotion in their second season in Serie B, but would find themselves back in Serie B after failing to cope in the Serie A. The next 3 seasons for Napoli would see them struggle in the second division, but the worst was yet to come, as in 2004, the club's debt was estimated up to £60 million, and so Napoli declared bankruptcy. To secure football in the city, the film producer, Aurelio De Laurentiis, refounded the club under the name Napoli Soccer. The Italian Football Federation came to agreement to place the new Napoli in the Serie C1. Despite playing in the Serie C, they retained higher average attendance than most of the Serie A clubs, breaking the Serie C attendance record with 51,000 fans at one match. Slowly but surely over the years, Napoli managed to climb back up and reach the Serie A once again, becoming the Italian superpower that they are recognised to be today. The 2004 AFCON was held in Tunisia, and coming into the tournament, Tunisia were definitely not favourites. As a matter of fact, Tunisia had never won an AFCON before and had only made it to 2 finals in the past. Tunisia were in Group A, and the opening game was against Rwanda. They managed to beat Rwanda 2-1, with their winning goal coming from Francisco Silva dos Santos Lima. Now I know what you're probably thinking, this name doesn't sound Tunisian in the slightest, but instead sounds Brazilian. And you're not wrong, and as a matter of fact, he became a Tunisian citizen a few days before the AFCON started. Now I don't know how legal that is, but I ain't no snitch. Their second game was against Congo, in which they swept them 3-0. With 2 wins, Tunisia were already through to the knockout stage, so their 1-1 draw in their final game of the group didn't dampen their mood. Their quarter-final game was against Senegal. Tunisia would go on to win 1-0 thanks to a header from defensive midfielder Mnari. Tunisia's semi-final game was against the Super Eagles, Nigeria. The match was at a standstill until the 67th minute. Nigeria were on the counter-attack. Kanu took a few touches before being brought down in the box, and Nigeria were awarded a penalty. JJ Okocha scored a penalty, and now Tunisia were a goal down. 15 minutes later, Tunisia would be awarded a penalty of their own, and Tunisia equalised, sending the game to extra time. Both teams would fail to score in extra time, and so penalties would be the decider. Peter Odemwingie, most famously known for pulling up to QPR Stadium on transfer deadline day in 2013 despite not actually being signed by them. Nevertheless, Odemwingie would miss his penalty. The rest of Tunisia's penalty takers failed to miss, and so Nigeria lost the penalty shootout 5-3, and Tunisia were in the final. Tunisia's final opponent would be the fellow North African nation Morocco. It wouldn't take long for the deadlock to be broken, as in the 5th minute, Santos scored, placing Tunisia one step closer to making history. However, in the 38th minute, Morocco would score a header thanks to Youssouf Mokhtari, and the game was all level. In the 52nd minute came the winner, as Jose Clayton, another Brazilian Tunisian, shot was too powerful for the keeper to hold, and so the ball fell to Jaziri to tap it in for the winner. And Tunisia went on to win the AFCON, their only AFCON to this day. In the 2003-04 season, the Bundesliga wasn't like the Bundesliga we know today. The Bundesliga right now is a farmers league, if we're being honest. German fans, don't kill me. One team has won the league for 10 straight seasons. If that ain't a farmers league, then I don't know what is. But let me stop the Bundesliga slander and get back to Werder Bremen. Werder Bremen had just finished 6th the season prior, but the 03-04 season would be completely different, all thanks to one man, an overweight, lazy, 30-year-old Brazilian striker called Ailton. Ailton joined Werder Bremen in '98 and was pretty mediocre up until now, but for some strange reason, this year he decided to become R9. The first match of the season saw Werder Bremen travel to Hertha Berlin. The match ended 3-0, with Ailton scoring a brace, which would become a common theme throughout the entire season. But unfortunately, 2 losses in the first 10 games saw Werder Bremen in 3rd. Luckily, Werder Bremen didn't let these losses get to them, as they went unbeaten in 23 games, which placed them first, coming into match week 32. See, match week 32, or May 8th, 2004, was Werder Bremen's final obstacle on their road to glory. An away match at Bayern Munich was all that stood between them and history. No, Werder Bremen sat comfortably in first, 6 points clear of Bayern Munich in second. All Bremen needed to win the Bundesliga was a point. Early in the season, both sides had to share the points as they drew 1-1, but the question is, who'd get the last laugh? It didn't take long for a breakthrough to arise, as Bayern and German legend Oliver Kahn made a horrible mistake, allowing Werder Bremen to take the lead and place one hand on the trophy. Before half an hour had been played, Bremen's attacking prowess was once again on show, as Johan McCall doubled the visitors' lead, scoring his 10th goal of the season. If 2 goals wasn't enough, then a third was surely not Bayern out cold, as Ailton produced a beautiful curler, beating Khan to seal the title for Werder Bremen, all before half-time. The celebrations had begun in Bremen, despite having to play another 45 minutes of football. Bayern did end up scoring a consolation goal, but Thomas Schaff and his men didn't care, as they were crowned Bundesliga champions. Similarly to the Bundesliga, La Liga in 2003-04 was completely different to the current state of La Liga. The league was a lot more competitive, as there was not one standout team like today's Madrid, but instead there were a handful of teams that had the capacity to win. You had Deportivo, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Athletic Bilbao and Valencia. But let's focus on Valencia. Valencia started off the 03-04 campaign unbeaten in 6. This run sat them top of the league, 1 point clear of Deportivo, which is coincidental as their next game was actually against Deportivo. And unfortunately for Valencia, Deportivo won the game 2-1, and as a result, Valencia fell down to 3rd place. But 2 weeks later, they would return to 1st, following a 5-0 hammering over Mallorca. This sort of movement between Real Madrid, Deportivo and Valencia for top spot was a common theme throughout the beginning of the season, but by match week 21, Real Madrid sat comfortably at the top of the league thanks to the performances of their star-studded Galacticos. But Valencia didn't give in and were constantly on Los Blancos' tail. Their efforts weren't in vain as well, as they finally got their chance. On the 11th of April 2004, Valencia beat Real Zaragoza. 2 hours later and just 200 miles away, first place Real Madrid played against Osasuna. So coming into this game, everyone predicted Madrid to win. But just as fate would have it, Real Madrid lost 3-0 at the Bernabeu. As a result, Valencia went top of for the first time since November. Now, the question was, how long would they be able to stay ahead of Madrid? Luckily for Valencia, in the final 6 games of the season, Madrid capitulated and lost 5 of their 6 games, basically handing Rafa Benitez's boys the La Liga trophy. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment and subscribe to join the counter-attack, and I'll see you next time.